of times founders think, hey, you know what, I've already set my pricing. I know I didn't think about it enough. Now what do I do? So I think that's a very, very good question to ask, but you need not be worried about it at all. So nobody is looking at your website at one day, then coming back in 6 months or a year and then deciding, hey, you know what, your pricing was lower earlier and things like that. That doesn't happen. So pricing changes should be done every quarter. So you should be looking at what are the value metrics, how do I deliver value to customers, and you should be doing that on a quarterly basis and changing your prices on a quarterly basis. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So the other challenge that comes is, hey, if I increase my pricing, won't I lose my existing customers who have sold at a lower price? And again, there are two ways of looking at it. One way of looking at it is to say, hey, I'll grandfather my pricing for my old customers because they trusted me and they supported me at a earlier stage. So you could say, hey, for you, this pricing will be locked in. What you should do at that point is, if you, let's say you're charging them on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, you should tell them, look, I am increasing my pricing. You can lock in the pricing, but only if you prepay me for a year or 2 years or 3 years. And for the period that you're prepaying me, I will lock in your pricing. And this is only for old customers. This is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, which a lot of people prefer, is to say, look, you are paying me monthly. You have the choice to move away. I'm going to give you a grace period where the pricing will be the same, but then your pricing is going to increase along with everybody else, because the value you're getting from my product today is more than the value that you were getting from my product a year ago. Therefore, my price is going up. And that's also a perfectly valid thing to do. The only thing is you have to be extremely careful about how you message that to customers. There are companies which have a 5 or 10% escalation, startups which have a 5 or 10% escalation clause built into their contracts. They say that my prices will go up every year by 5%. And you know what? Mid-market and enterprise customers, a lot of them are perfectly fine with having that clause, because they understand that in a business, when you're setting a price, prices will go up because there are external factors driving those prices up. And so your handling of the issue of increasing prices, the sensitivity with which you do that, the thoughtfulness with which you do that is very important in not losing customers. But these are two easy ways of not losing customers. So the moment you cross, say, a few crores in revenue or a few $1 million in revenue, that's when you should start looking at, okay, can I serve different segments of my customers in a differentiated way, adding different values to them, and therefore, being able to price things differently to them. So for a simple example is, I could be selling the same product and I could be selling that to individuals, I could be selling that to small companies, or I could be selling that to large companies. As a startup, you don't want to do that. You just want to say my product is good for small businesses and just go after that. Once you have 1,000 customers like that or 10,000 customers like that, then you can think about how to price for the others. Often people get into a differential pricing too early on when these segments are different, and a large company can afford to do that, like a Microsoft can do that, or an Adobe can do that, or others can do that, but a startup should not be having too many segments that they're going after, and therefore should not be looking at differentiating pricing for these segments too much, but they should be looking at making sure that within that segment, somebody who's getting more value pays you more, somebody who's getting less value pays you less. I think very, very few founders think about this with any depth, and I think this is something that is really, really important to think about. What drives your pricing in your customer's organization? You should know exactly how they think about pricing. In a software context, things as simple as, will I help you with using my software? Will I provide you training? Will I provide you support that is either for 8 hours a day for 5 days, or 8 hours a day for 6 days, or 24 hours for 7 days, 365? These are all very, very simple things, but your pricing can go up as much as 2x or 3x or 5x just by differentiating on these things with your competition and based on what customers are asking. Innovative product founders are always looking for, I need to find a new thing on which to price differently. But actually, customers don't want new things on which to price differently. They're just saying, hey, can I get a level of service that I want? And that could do with any of these things, timeliness of delivery or quality of delivery or help with using the product, whatever, all of those kind of things. And if you just differentiate on those aspects of delivery and you're delivering better and better over time on those, you'll be able to figure out a much better pricing model for yourself. There are a lot of examples where people have left a ton of money on the table because they just offered 24 bar 7 support without understanding that that customer would be ready to pay you know, much more for 24 bar 7 support than they would pay for 8 bar 5 support. That's a critical mistake because 24 bar 7 support is going to cost you a lot to deliver, and if you're not pricing that appropriately, you will not be able to sustain that in the long term. So that's a kind of a blind spot that a lot of founders have with respect to pricing. And if you figure out what is important for your customer to do to get the value out of your product, you can easily figure out 5 or 10 things that you can price extra or price more or price better to get much more money from the same sales win than you would otherwise.